Let's be real for a second. Using AI can be frustrating, especially when the responses that you get are nothing like what you wanted. You got the usual culprits. You got boundless exposition. You got hallucinations. You got it going off on a complete tangent on a topic that you didn't even care about. I could list out a ton of problems that someone could actually encounter when using an AI. But at the end of the day, you look at the response that you get, and in your frustration, you think, well, this was completely worthless and a waste of time. But in most cases, I'm talking 9 out of 10. Problem isn't necessarily the AI. The problem is the prompt. To those of you who are new, I'm Fabio, and I spent over half a decade in the AI, business, and engineering spaces. And today I'm going to show you how to get rid of those frustrating answers and get the actual professional level responses that you dream of using a simple framework. So let's get to it, shall we? So this framework consists of 6 steps in order to get the perfect prompt. And at the end of it, I'll give you an additional step that can take it to the next level. So to break it down, the first part of this framework would be the character, or in other words, a role, which is where you tell the AI who it should be. Take it like this. Let's say you're hiring for a job role and you put your job posting on a job board. A role or character in the context of AI would be similar to the job title and the skills and expertise that the person who would be applying for that job posting should be capable of doing. And the more specialized the task that you want the AI to do, the more detail you have to put in its character or role. Because on the opposite end, what would you think would happen if you picked somebody random off the street and asked them to complete a super complex task? Probably not going to go so well. So a clear description of how an AI should behave can instantly change the quality of your answers from something generic to something focused and of quality. Next, we got the context. This is about telling the AI what it should be doing during every single interaction. In the job posting example, this would be like the job description that describes what an ideal candidate would be doing on a day-to-day basis. To put it simply, this is just a way to set expectations. And in the case of the AI, the context would consist of who you, being the user, are, what you are asking for it to do during every single interaction, and the overview of what you'd want back from it in return. That way it has a set of expectations and it won't have to scramble to come up with a bunch of ideas or random facts, so it can come up with a somewhat sensible answer. Because in the context section, you set the expectations of what you want it to do and what it will be receiving in every single interaction. The next part is all about directions, or better put, instructions. Here is where you lay out the instructions of what you want the AI to do with the information that you give it during an interaction. You can think of it like going to a restaurant. And when the waiter comes by for your order, you tell them what meal you want, how you want the meal to be prepared, what allergies that you may have, and so on and so on. And if it's on the fancier side of things, you can also ask for the order at which you would want your meals to be served to you, like appetizer, drinks, main course, dessert, and so on. So to put it simply, the directions section of the framework is all about telling the AI the process that it should go through with the information that you gave it to give you a quality response. The fourth part of the framework is all about the output, which is all about telling the AI how it should format its response to you. So one of the things that's most common with most AIs or LLMs out there is exposition, where it goes into painfully annoying detail as to all the context before giving you the answer to the question of the particular topic that you asked of it, which can get annoying at some points. So if you're not a fan of all that exposition, here is where you tell it not to do so. If you want the AI to search for something and you want it to give you a list of all the sources that it used, here is where you put down that you would explicitly want those sources as part of the response. Or if you're doing something like writing a report of some sort and you want it to be structured, complete with a title, subheadings, a certain layout or a certain font or a certain writing style, here is where you tell it that explicitly. It's like how in some industries there are certain reports that need to be formatted a particular way or have a certain standard that they should meet in order to be valid, like contracts made by lawyers, for example. And due to this, I believe personally that this section, along with the directions section, can be the difference between getting closer to exactly the kind of answer that you wanted and how you wanted it, and the AI going off on a complete tangent. And when it comes to these two sections, the more specific you are, the more useful the answer becomes as a whole. The next section of the framework has to do with constraints, which I would argue would be one of, if not the most important part of the framework. Because what's better than telling an AI what it can do is telling an AI what it shouldn't do. And here is exactly where you do it. This can be things like a word count limit, the types of sources that it looks at, the format of how it's going to cite those sources. Or if you're trying to prevent something like hallucinations, whether it's allowed to make any assumptions outside of what you tell it explicitly. It's kind of like when you order catering for an event. You have a certain budget, and one of the things when you order catering for an event is you get a list of questions to do with the type of cuisine that you'd want, whether anyone's allergic to anything, how many people are there, the type of budget that you got, or any food restrictions that people may have. So in the case of AI, constraints force the AI to essentially lock in and to give you the answers exactly the way that you want it to, and only give you what you need, not to go off on a complete tangent and give you something completely out of scope. The last part of the framework has to do with examples. And this part is kind of optional because all it is telling the AI what good looks like to you. There are not many cases where I would find the examples section to be relevant. But some of the most obvious cases can be with something like advertising copy, where you can pick off highly performing copy, be it headlines, primary descriptions, call to actions in certain combinations or in certain formats, and then paste that into the example section that you can then send off to the AI so that it knows what good looks like in your eyes and in the eyes of others, which would mean that the answers that it would give in return would emulate what you provided to a degree. And that pretty much sums up the entire framework. And if you want a quick acronym for it so that it's easier to memorize, you can use CCDOC with an E, which is pretty much the character, the context, the directions, the output, the constraints, and the examples. So now let's actually put all this together into a quick little examples so you can see this thing in action. So let's run through a quick example using this framework. So I guess it's almost the holidays, and it's going to be about time for people to start going gift shopping. So how about something like a Christmas sale? Let's do it for gym apparel. Specifically, let's go with hoodies and sweatshirts. So let's go with ad copy for a Christmas sale for a e-commerce brand for specifically gym apparel. In this case, more specifically, hoodies and sweatshirts. So what would be considered a weak prompt in this case scenario? Well, it could be something as easy as, let's see, write me ad copy, limited time Christmas sale for Christmas themed hoodies and shirts for my e-commerce brand. Okay, so when you see this, most people would argue that it is a good prompt. And by all means, it is a good start. but there is a lot lacking between a prompt that would give you generic answers, which this most likely will give you generic answers because you did not give anything specific besides what attire the copy is for, that it's for a e-commerce brand, and that it's a Christmas sale. That's pretty much all you give it. So it will make a ton of assumptions to do with possibly what your audience is. You didn't tell it that. It'll make assumptions to do with how long this sale's gonna be. You didn't give it any information on that. You didn't give any specifications on the type of sale that you're doing. Is it like a discount? Is it like a buy one, get one free sale? It doesn't know this information, so it will, rightfully so, make some assumptions. You also didn't give it the name of your e-commerce brand, so it can personalize specifically for your brand. It will go on the more generic side of things. You also didn't tell it who your target audience is. Do you want to sell hoodies and sweatshirts to a specifically male audience? Do you want it to be specifically female audience? Do you want it to be a mix of both? Do you want it to be themed in such a way as for people who know people who go to the gym and you want them to buy it as a gift? You didn't tell it. So, rightfully so, it's going to also make assumptions about that. But not to worry, using the framework that we went through, we can fix this and make it way better and way more personalized. But first, let's actually click enter and see the types of answers that we get. So, these are the answers that we get. And rightfully so, as you can see, it did make a good chunk of assumptions. So with the first one, for example, it assumed that we're doing a 30% off sale. And also it specified like an end date. We may want to have ended the sale before December 25th. And we may want it to have done maybe a 50% deal or a buy one, get one free deal. As another example, the second option here doesn't even put in the fact that it is a sale that we are doing. It just says it's a limited time Christmas drop, as if we're just having this merchandise dropped off for the said limited time, but we're not applying any sale factor or any discount or any type of incentive besides, hey, this is a limited edition type of merchandise. But maybe it's not. Maybe you want to have it on the store from then on onwards. We didn't tell it, so it assumed. And if you even go down lower and lower, you can see there's an email headline. So it went ahead and did an email headline because it assumed that this is going to be for an email campaign. Because we didn't tell it which platform you wanted this copy to be specified for. So it went with email. And then it made one for stories and ads. So as you can see, the less you actually specify in a prompt, the more assumptions that any AI that you use will make in the answer that it gives you. And this is one of the major problems when it comes to majority of hallucinations coming from AIs. You don't give details or specify enough on what it is that you want, and the AI isn't a mind reader. So when you get angry at it or get frustrated that it made a bunch of wild assumptions that goes in a completely different direction from what you want, you blame the AI. But it's just trying to do its best with the information that you gave it. But I digress. Let's now take this first prompt that we made here and format it using the framework so that we can get a better answer specifically tailored to us from a single prompt. So going to a new tab here, this is the first prompt that we had in the beginning. So now let's use the framework to iterate on this prompt and make it more tailored so that we can get a better answer for our specific needs. So the first part of the framework has to do with the role. And we didn't tell the AI the role that it should have when it's answering this prompt. So when we asked it to create ad copy, the answer that it gave us, or the answer that it will give us, will vary in terms of quality. It can be the difference between somebody like a senior digital marketer or just a small startup founder in writing the copy for the prompt. One has more expertise than the other, and the quality of the copy that you get will show that difference in expertise level. So for a role here, let's go with something like you are a copywriter with something like years of experience, and then give it what it specializes in. So you specialize, and now we've given it a role. And as an extra tip here, one of the easiest ways to minimize hallucinations is to just quite literally tell the AI explicitly that you do not want it to hallucinate. And you can do this in the role, you can do this in the instructions, you can do this in the constraints. And there are certain ways that you can word it so that it listens to you. So if I wanted to prevent it from making any hallucinations or assumptions in its response, I could go to the role and say that something like, you take your role really would never make assumptions on business in your company in any way. By stating this, you essentially explicitly stating that it should not make any assumptions that are unfounded about anything that you come to it and ask it about. And this essentially makes up the role part of the framework. It can be something as simple as this, or you can make it slightly more simpler. You don't even need to have like an entire section here. If you don't want to, you can specify that somewhere else, or you can make it more complex depending on what you're asking the AI about. So the next part is all about the context. And this is pretty much, as we went through, telling the AI about us and what we want it to do and the information that we're coming to it with. So we can go with something like user has an e-commerce brand in the fitness niche called, let's go with something fun, something like Lion of David or something like that. They are coming requests for skills, a copy for a limited time Christmas sale lasting up until January on Christmas. The hoodies and sweatshirts. They hunt you to come up with 5 pieces of complete advertising copy, including headline, description, and CTA to be used to direct traffic and get sales from Instagram to their Shopify website. Okay, so this can pretty much complete the context part of the framework. And as you can see, we've given the detail about who we are, the name of our brand, what we want it to do with the information that we give it. We're telling it what we want the copy for. It's a Christmas sale. We told it how long it's lasting. We're telling it what discount we're using. We're telling it which apparel we're going for. We're telling it how many pieces of copy we want from it. We're telling it which platform we want, which in this case would be Instagram. We're telling it our goal to direct traffic and get sales on our Shopify store, specifically for the Christmas themed gym apparel. And now, as a neat trick, this is also another way to prevent hallucinations. One of the more easier ways of getting the AI to not hallucinate is, rather than try to give the AI all the information, you ask the AI to tell you what information it needs from you. That way, you don't need to stress your brain about whether you've given it everything that it needs. So in this case, I can go to the context part and say again that you will start off with asking exhaustive questions about the user, the business, and their needs that will be needed to create compelling copy in an interview-like fashion. You will ensure that your response does not go outside the scope of what has been given to you. And again, adding this in at the end just kind of flips the script on the AI. So that now rather than you having to give it information, it's telling you what it needs from you, decreasing the chances of it hallucinating as a consequence, which is pretty cool. Okay, moving on to the next part of the framework is the task or direction. So you can say something like start off with an introduction, explain who you are, the process they will go through, proceed with the interview questions to understand more about the user, the business, and their needs as a whole. And then apart from that, it is also another tip. There are a lot of tips here, but the whole point of this framework is to direct the AI into the right direction. And there are a lot of nuance to this. And again, because I've been doing this for a while, there are certain things that I kind of just put without a second thought. But there is this idea that the more you highlight the importance of something to the AI, higher up on its hierarchy of importance, it will put that thing. So in this case, what I've been highlighting is two things. One, that it should ask us everything that it should know. And two, that it should not make any assumptions. This is pretty much just a way to, like I said before, prevent hallucinations and make sure that the answers that we get are actually specific and tailored to us. So in the directions part, you can again put in something like this to further just hit it home that you want these responses to be specific and tailored to you. That's the whole point of continuously repeating this in each and every single section. That way it will just know that, hey, this is like number one or number two in terms of importance and what I should consider in writing my response. So in the direction side of things, you can write something like, ensure that you completely exhaust all required questions in order to write copy and respond with what you understand about the user for explicit confirmation from them before proceeding with a response. This is just a way to put up the fact that we wanted to not make any assumptions and we wanted to have these answers specifically tailored to us higher up on its tier list. So write this in multiple ways. But the TLDR of it is that the higher you want something to be ranked in terms of importance to the AI, the more you should tend to repeat it in your prompt, at least when you're using a framework like this. But continuing on with the direction side of things, you can go with something like using advertising best practices, write and respond with 5 compelling pieces copy. Okay, that can pretty much sum up the directions portion of this prompt. So now moving on, we're going to go with the output. So with the output, we can just say, it's again just telling it how we want the answers to be given to us. So we can go with start each and copy response as such. Headline, description, CTA, and an explanation highlighting the structure of the copy and why it would work. And it can be something just that easy. That pretty much can sum up the output part of it. And then the next part would be the constraints side of things. So over here, you could go with, again, sure that you never make any unfounded assumptions about the user and their business under any circumstances. You can say that ensure that you get explicit confirmation from the user on your understanding of them before providing a response. And also go with something like sure that your ad copy meets the requirements of Meta and follows best practices for advertising, and so on and so on. You can add in as many constraints as you want, but the main thing here is to just tell the AI what it can do and what it can't do. And by having a constraints section, you essentially get to put in all those things into one box that can be easily identified by the AI before it gives you a response. And the last part for this is any examples that you may have. In case of this example, not really gonna provide any, but one of the easier things that you can do, especially for something like ad copy, is that if you have any competitors or if you happen to cross over a certain ad that looks really good or is quite compelling, then all you have to do is copy that example and paste it into the example section. And the essence of the example section in it of itself is just to tell the AI what good looks like to you. But in the case of this example, we're not going to put in any example section. But even without it, you can clearly tell the difference between the quality of the prompt that we got before, which is still up here, and how we essentially turned this into something that's specific, detailed, and tailored to direct the AI to give us a response the way that we want it to. And that's the whole point of this framework. So now you've seen me go ahead and do an example using this framework, and you can go ahead and try it out. It can be something like iCopy, or it can be something else completely different. The choice is up to you. But let's actually send this through and see the difference between the level of response that we would get. Okay, so this is the level of difference between the response that we got last time and the response that we're getting now. So in this new response, we had a nice introduction about the AI, who it is, its thought process, how it's going to give us the right kind of answer. And then it goes over the interview questions that it will go through in order to get us that perfect answer. And just taking a look at it, you can see that there is a lot of questions, 18 to be exact. And that's one of the things with when it comes to directing an AI the right way. It's very hard to figure out the right amount of information to give to an AI. So rather than try and figure out every little detail to give to an AI, the easiest thing to do is to ask the AI itself, what does it want from you? And even though this may seem daunting and it may seem like a lot of information, would you rather get the hallucinated answer and then have to iterate over and over and over and over again? Or just ask the AI what it wants and have to do it only once and then get damn near close to the perfect answer that you were looking for on the first try? I know what I would pick. But let's keep going with this so that you can see the end result. I'll just go ahead and write down some responses and then send it through so that we can get to the next stage. We've gone through each of the questions and written an appropriate answer for each of them. Y'all can go ahead and take a look if you want, but I'm going to go ahead and send this in so that you can see the difference between this result and the past result that we got with the earlier prompt. Awesome. So we got another response, and this highlights the importance of repetition and ensuring that you tell the AI explicitly what you want from it. So in order to prevent hallucinations, as I said, as we were going through the framework for the prompt, that I had two things in mind in terms of importance. One is ensuring that we minimize any hallucinations, and two is making sure that there are no unfounded assumptions on us, our brand, or our product. And one of the ways I did this was by saying that it should repeat back to me what it is going to use and what it currently understands about us so we can confirm it. That way we can look through what it gives and see, hey, is this what we want? Is it making an assumption here? Is it going to hallucinate here? And that way we can tell it, yes, this is good. Go ahead. I like these answers. Or, hey, this is wrong. Can you change this? You're making an assumption. That way you can catch the mistakes before you get the final result. And in this case, it did exactly that. It spit back to me what it thinks and currently understands about me, about the business, about the brand. And then it asked me to confirm whether this is accurate. And from the looks of it, based off the responses that I gave, I would say that it is pretty good. So we can, in fact, confirm it. Okay, this is the response that we get. As you can see, it's now way more tailored to our business, to our brand, to what we actually want from it, to which platform that we're going to do it, the type of sale we're doing. And it goes into detail and even gives us an explanation, because we asked for one, on why this type of copy would work in an ad. So you can go with the first example. The first headline is Train Bold, Believe, Fierce, Christmas just got stronger. So it's highlighting to attract gym goers with a bold message, while also bringing in the festivity of Christmas. And then it goes ahead with a description that describes who the brand is, what this ad is for, which is a limited edition sale. It even highlights some of the features or benefits of even going with on our product being 100% cotton in all material, it being comfortable, it being part of the festive gym spirit, it having bold designs. And then after that, it goes with what the type of sale that we're going for, which is a 30% off sale until January 10th. And then also highlighting the fact that if people order before December 20th, they get it before Christmas. And then it gives a nice CTA at the end. And then as you go through all the other ad copies, you can see that it does the same thing for each and every single one of the responses and limits it to 5 pieces of copy that we can use for our advertising or marketing. And this is pretty much how you go about using the framework. And now you kind of understand the difference between the response you'd have gotten with a subpar mediocre prompt and a prompt made using the framework that we just went through. So hopefully now you can understand its importance. So go ahead and try it out. But AI isn't perfect. Just like we had to learn how to crawl before we could learn how to walk, before we learned how to run, the answers that AI gives is not perfect the first time. Which is why the extra tip to taking this framework to the next level would be the idea of iterative prompting. One of the concepts that I have come to learn and perform anytime that I'm using AI is the idea of iterative prompting, which can be the difference between getting and accepting a mediocre answer in frustration or getting the output that you imagined. So my tip to you is that if you get a response from an AI that is not the exact answer that you want, try iterating on your prompt. Maybe initially it might take a bit longer, but as you get better and better at iterative prompting, typically 1 to 2 iterations is all that it takes to get the answer exactly how you want it. You can kind of think of it like working with an intern. You give them a task, like to do a report on something. But when they hand it to you, especially during the first couple of weeks, you don't just take the answer at face value. You look through it. You make sure everything was done properly. You have a review session with them where you tell them what they did wrong and how they can improve on the next round. And sooner or later, the number of mistakes becomes non-existent. So now you have a simple framework that can take the mediocre, frustrating answers that AI gives you and turn them into the dream answer that you always wanted every single time. So go ahead and try it out and let me know how it works. And until next time, I'm in your corner and I am rooting for you.